look. Both players have probably put their tiles down. Oh, and it's back. Oh, good. Well, that wasn't too long of a delay. Josh has Prie-Dieu set up on his rack. I think he's thinking of Prie-Dieu, but perhaps he's just set it up that way for whatever reason. Noah finds battery, and that is going to put the game out of reach. He only has 3 left. Josh, as far as I can tell, won't be able to bingo. Quackle's going to confirm it. Those 2 U's were killer. He's just gonna, okay, he's gonna try a weird spelling of Prie-Dieu. Nah, he's just having fun with us, folks. Josh and I do that on stream a lot when I'm playing as this guy. We like to see who can make each other laugh. I've also heard of that guy on the left, Ajax. Welcome to the chat. I'm disappointed in I Am Rosen. He should know better. He's a big fan of Josh. When I was in Montreal with Josh and Noah, Josh wore I Am Rosen merchandise pretty much every day I was there. So perhaps one day Josh will be big enough to get merchandise of his own, and then we can walk around supporting our favorite streamer. He also had a mug, 2 mugs I believe, because I think we were each drinking out of an I Am Rosen mug. And I Am Rosen has what I don't have, that beautiful radio voice. I love listening to him talk, and who is Wanderer15? I don't know. Some say he's a legend, others say he's very pale and sarcastic, but perhaps they're talking about me. Yes, Churro, Josh should make merch. Does he have a catchphrase like, oh no, my queen? He needs a catchphrase. Oh no, I'm very tall and I bumped my head. How does that work for a shirt? Maybe for a hat, it would be more fitting. Okay, PE is going to come down. That's a Hebrew letter. Now it just has to play Goth. Yeah, I am also legendarily pale and sarcastic. I'm just not as well known as Will is in the Scrabble world. This one is going to end with a big win for Noah, 471 to 412. He will be going up 2-1 in the set. Yeah, Lola likes seeing tournaments where shirts are designed. I definitely, looks like Noah's not wearing a Scrabble shirt now, but I was mentioning Josh was wearing a lot of I Am Rosen shirts. Noah was wearing a lot of shirts he had picked up from different tournaments. I have a shirt from the Canadian Nationals 2018, the only time I played in that event, and I was happy to finish with a winning record and a rating gain. Yeah, Churro's merch will probably be purple, although for all we know, next time we turn onto her screen, her hair will have changed colors. I'm thinking it could be red or yellow. Perhaps it'll be a color we're not even familiar with. Just like I said, it's probably changing soon. Another player who changes their hair a lot is Jackson. Right now you see his longer hair spilling over his shoulders. We've seen it spiky and blonde, we've seen it pink, we've seen it blue. There is Wiggles merch. I hope somebody linked to it. If you signed up for their Kickstarter campaign, you got a sweatshirt. There were also hats. I believe Mina knitted a hat that I've seen Cesar wear. It has the floppy ears of the Wiggles dog. Okay, Lola's given us the behind the scenes reasoning as to why the merch isn't there yet. Being a non-profit, taxes would be involved. I was too late to donate to the Kickstarter campaign. By the time I heard about Wiggles, it had already been fully funded, but I did donate money later. It didn't come with any gear, but I was totally fine with that. Big fan of Woogles and everything it's done for the game. Being able to export your games directly to Quackle has been so helpful for me in learning strategy. You can um, send your game directly after you're done playing to Quackle and then run one of those simulations that I told you about. So perhaps there were two plays on one turn that you were really considering. Should you have played play A or play B? And then you can run the simulation, let the computer play out that play over and over and over and over again until it's come up with its own valuation as to which play was better. One thing to consider is that Quackle is assuming that both players are going to play like Quackle, and of course if you don't have the word knowledge, you won't be playing that way, which means your own interpretation of the results is going to be a bit different. You can't necessarily just take their valuation at face. However, it's definitely a good starting point, more than enough to at least probably suggest what the better play is. And if you're not sure, you can always post a question, perhaps on Facebook, on Woogles. There's many different resources. Players like Strategy love to go through different positions and explain why one would be better. On Quackle, you can also click on the different choices and it'll tell you which one is more likely to lead to your opponent scoring more on the next turn or bingoing more the next turn. So depending on what you're trying to prevent, that can be very important. Yeah, Bonehead, that's true. My niece also loves stuffed pillows or dolls of any sort. My nieces are a lot younger than yours, but perhaps that's why they're even more into it. They have also stolen my parents' dog because my parents' dog seems to do much better at their house. The match score at present would be 2-1. Josh just updated that. So Noah has pulled into an early lead, but there is a lot to go in this series. I still haven't gotten a score from... Oh, okay, so Sid is now up over Jackson. He's at 7-4 total record. So he won the first game in Series 2. But only one of their games has been posted. I'll post that link again. There was a command, but I forget it. So I'll just copy and paste here. That's the enhanced scoreboard. Much love from Josh, and we are sending our love back. He has a purple heart, just like some combat soldiers. It's nice to see two pianos in the background, a real piano behind Noah and a keyboard behind Josh. Like so many players in Scrabble, both these players play quite well. Josh can play by ear, as we've seen on stream so many times. Noah loves to sight read. He was playing concertos pretty much the whole time I was there, humming along. Jackson plays, especially with a nice jazzy style, and is always part of an a cappella group. And I believe even Sid plays. And I also play the piano because I'm a Scrabbler. And who doesn't play the piano if you're a Scrabbler? If you don't, you might as well quit the game because you'll never go anywhere. I am kidding, of course, sort of. But other Scrabblers also play piano. I saw a video of Joel playing piano when I was in Montreal. I think he was playing Billy Joel. Chiro is done. I have scared her off. She doesn't play piano. But because she has purple hair, we'll let it slide. Josh has a very high scoring word of Kaizen. That's the first thing I see. He could play short with Zek. Kaizen leaving the C is good. The C is a good tile. It doesn't overlap, which some people might mistakenly undervalue it for, thinking that because you can't overlap it as a 2, or hook it as a 2, it's not as important. But The C forms so many words, it does score 3 points, and those defensive attributes can actually come quite in handy. Perhaps not early in the game, especially after playing long on the first turn, if he does play Kaizen, but it is something to consider. I don't know anything about the Charlotte Scrabble site. That was just the link that they gave to me. But what I can do is I can give you this link, and on that link you can look at high scores, tough luck they call it, which is people who lost a game. I forget what their criteria is for that, but perhaps it was like a high scoring loss, something like that. No, Chris, I don't think he's going to be fishing with a rack that can score 48, and he correctly does find that play and make it. Noah has another one of the high scoring tiles, the J, so he's definitely going to look and play it on this turn. He could play Kanji, which is almost like our friend strategy here in the chat. Hello, Kenji. Excited to hear you commentate tonight's games. You always come up with plays that I don't even see, even when I'm just watching. Right now it's a bit harder because I'm trying to do 3 things at once, being commentate, score keep in Quackle, and also keep up with the chat. So it is a bit harder than normal to look for plays, but hopefully I'll stop talking so much and try and look. One of the hard things is because I don't have a co-commentator, I feel the need to keep the dead air to a minimum, and I want to keep talking, and I enjoy talking, especially to all of you very nice people who have come to watch high-level NWL play. So yeah, thank you to Strategy for answering about the script here, because I didn't really know. The obvious J play would be joined, because the J shows up on the triple. You could also play short with join, but that would leave 3 vowels to 1 consonant, so it seems less likely. So he's going to play Kanji. And one nice thing there is he does have the O in the chance that the J isn't taken to play parallel, although the O as a parallel wouldn't score that much and is pretty likely to get blocked because the J in front of a double letter score is often where your opponent will play. The smallest margin over X number of games. Okay, thank you, James C, for filling us in on that. I knew it was something along those lines, but I wasn't quite sure. Thank you, Cynicalad. I appreciate that. It's my first time commentating, so I'm very new to this. But I have been playing Scrabble daily for over 15 years, so I do think I have a pretty good feel on the game. In the last 5 years or so, I've been taking it a lot more seriously, studying pretty hard the last 3 years or so, especially early in COVID, when I had a lot of time. Juicy comes down. Once again, I spoke instead of looked, so I didn't have time to look for that. And Noah's not going to give me an opportunity by playing Byword. A very nice word that I first learned from my good friend Jim Nanavati, who played it against me once. So Byword scores big, 57 points, and dumping the BWO combo. So that'll make Noah happy. When Josh moves his hands, we'll see what he has. Okay, behavior without an H. Abortive if he had a T. Do we see any other bingos that he could possibly have? I don't. So Quackle is confirming there's no bingo here. Read buying was suggested. That would have been for a previous turn. But was that Josh's juicy turn? Okay, on the read buying turn, he didn't have a G, he had a C. So it wasn't going to be an option, but if he did have a G instead of a C, that could have been playable. Looking at Josh's current rack, You could see something like wavier come down from the W. Oh, sorry, by going back, I have messed things up a touch. I'm just going to do some requackling. Okay, I'm back to where I should be. So wavier is the play that's jumping out at me. Again, apologize that the board is upside down. Um, Josh is the one controlling that. We're hoping in future streams to have the ability for the streamer, commentator, I should say, to be able to flip the board as needed. For now, we're going to have to make do with it being upside down, but at least it's clear. Great job by Josh in improving the video quality from yesterday to today. Yesterday was a bit blurry. Some said janky, a fun word, but okay. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the comments as I'm trying to speak, but if you're Josh, again, it comes down to what sort of board he's looking to form here. The higher level players really think about quadrants of the board, being the top right, top left, bottom right, bottom left. And okay, he's just gonna, okay, waver is better than wavier because it's not leaving the vowel beside it, but it does allow for an S. He's gonna keep his R to keep the hook alive. Wave being a common word, you could play waver, waved, waves. Noah has none of those. He sure wishes he did, because even though we all love the E, nobody wants 5 of them. A wee, fortunately for him, is a word if he wants to play through this rack. He could just play off a couple E's. He could play wee above byword, forming woe, and ed. You really have to know those 2-letter words if you want to play high-level Scrabble. They're pretty easy to learn. The longer the words get, the harder they get, but the 2-letter words, the more you play, the more familiar they'll become. If you want to practice, I really recommend woogles.io. They have beginner bots that only play common words, so they won't be playing words like Kaizen. Not words like kanji, and probably not even like bywords. So they're going to be playing words you know. Noah's going to play weave, leaving 3 E's. It's not often we leave 3 of anything. E would, I guess, be one tile you might. He's chosen that over we and over byword, which would have got rid of one of the E's. EEA, probably a bit better than EEE, but either is ideal. Speaking of ideal, drawing the blank, that is pretty ideal. Does Josh have a bingo that will end in the E, or that will hook wave? He's got to have 7s. Rube goes. Okay, they will play byword. I wasn't sure. I was on the fence about that one. Oh, down to the D, he could play songbird, bird song and songbird. I played that in one of my very first tournaments against my good friend Andre, and he was very complimentary, which I appreciated. It's always more fun when you get these words, when you can just anagram them yourself, not from extensive studying. Josh doesn't seem songbird, but will find Rubigos. According to Quackle, that's only 4 points fewer, and it does keep the board open, which might be what he wants to do, although if he saw Songbird, he might have played it. One thing about Songbird is it would have hung an S at the end, on a triple word score, where Noah could have formed an 8-letter word ending in S. So perhaps that was part of the reason why Josh didn't go in that route. Josh is also about 3.5 minutes lower on clock than Noah, so that's something he's been mindful of, although I think he's done a pretty good job with his clock in this game, being the slower player. All these players are capable of playing fast. I've played speed games against all of them. I consider myself to be a speed player at heart. Axe is the overlap that comes down here, leaving a nice bingo leave, while also scoring 37. Um, so if Josh had like a P, he could play porously. So even though that rack doesn't necessarily jump out to you as bingo tiles, missing tiles like the A, E, I, and T, um, it's perhaps closer than you think. That LY goes together nicely, but at the same time, it's not great. There are aspects to that rack that work, being the R and the S. Can he dump off some of his less appealing tiles while still scoring? Um, if he wants to commit to scoring here and he is ahead, he could play yours with waiver, leaving LO. You don't always have to be going for a bingo. Taking out the easiest hooked bingo lane on the board wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. He has just you set up now. Yours is set up. He could play something like Bowie if he wanted to maximize his bingo leave, but that wouldn't be advised. I wouldn't think. A lot of players hate burning that S, and with good reason. There are two unseen to him and one blank in the bag still. You don't necessarily need an S on this board at this point. There aren't a lot to really hook except for waiver. Okay, Lowry, that makes a lot more sense. Spelt properly with the U, unlike Kyle Lowry, the Raptors, or the former Raptor, uh, superstar who led us to our first championship, along with Kawhi Leonard. Josh, being 6'7", is quite good at basketball. Quite good at a lot of things, if we're being honest. Um, Noah has a U to go with his Q. There are plays he's going to be able to make that score, but none of them are going to score enough to get him at least a tie this game. Let's look what Quackle has to say. So they're recommending Equate as the top equity option. They're not considering what it gives back. So you see if I put Equate in the top corner here on the Quackle board, the E hangs in front of a double letter score. So it could be hit hard. After playing 5 tiles, it's hard to read what Josh would really have. Q looks like a better option perhaps, but he will go with Equate. And being down, that makes a lot of sense because it'll hook the board. He can play words ending parallel to the E, like above it, or hooking equate beneath it. So there are a lot of places in this board for Noah to get back in this game, and he has just drawn the second blank. Josh has duplicate L's and O's. We don't like those duplicates, but overall his rack could be worse. He does have a small lead, but since we know that Noah has the blank, that small lead is very perilous, and Josh is going to have to play quite astutely to hang on to it. We're always looking at what spots on the board can really score, so that would be next to the E of Equate, beneath the O of Lowry, or that double-double lane of the I of Rubicos. Double-double meaning you're hitting 2 double word scores, the light pink squares. There is a word, Uralis, which takes the front hook of a W for Woo-Ralis. So he could consider that. It really clogs things up in the middle of the board, but it is wasting an S. He did choose to hang on to the S last turn, and with good reason, having found Lowry. He's looking like he might just drop the LO or LOO Lou somewhere, leaving a strong bingo sort of leave. It looks like maybe he's considering lose. kanjis, I guess, but I don't think he'll play the S there. I'd be very surprised. He could play oleo, O-L-E-O. I think the normal spelling would be with the I, but it's like margarine. Um, or maybe the E is the normal spelling. I'm confused now. When you play this game so long, you start to get familiar with Scrabble words instead of real words sometimes. Um, I'm going to take a chance to define some of these words that have shown up that a lot of players, even if they're experienced tournament players, might not know what they mean. Rubigo is a red iron oxide. See, sometimes the definitions don't even help much. A byword is a well-known saying, and Lou, oh, it scores very nicely there. So once again, I'm talking instead of looking, but Lou will score 21 points and leave a nice leave. Noah is hurting to find a play to get back into this game. Okay, Elderwood is helping me with my definitions, and I appreciate that. Yeah, Noah's grabbed for the bingo slip. I think we might see upright come down, and he's chosen to play it on the left side of the E. It would score a touch more on the right side, because of the double square on the right side, but he has played it to the left. I'm sure he has his good reasons for it. A lot of people will think I'm ahead, I just want to limit scoring. Oh, before I get into this talk, let's look at Josh's bingo of an snarl coming down. But I'd love to hear from Kenvi as to why he thinks Noah played upright to the left, as I try and do three things at once. My first instinct would have been to play upright to the right, but oh, okay, so it's just because I missed doing basic math of where the multiplier landed. So never mind. So Noah was taking the points, which seems perfectly reasonable. Like I said, people, you get streamer brain. It's hard to keep track of so much at once. I hope I'm doing a good job. I will keep improving as the day goes on, I would like to think. Um, Noah has a rack of octave plus an F. There are a lot of big spots on this board. This board will not be closed anytime soon. He'll look again for double doubles. He'll look, the E of ensnarl is giving back quite a lot. He could play just fa there, but probably will be able to find something a bit more scoring. He could have played Ophobia, that's good. He gets rid of the F and the V. His two ugliest tiles there. He could have also played octave, the first word I saw, beneath and snarl. But that takes out a big scoring spot, and it scores 36. So Josh is up 11, and he has tempo, meaning it's his turn. Streaming? I don't have time for streaming. I do too much, Churro. I like being a guest streamer. It's like I love dogs so much, but do I want my own dog? No, I like to watch other people's dogs when they go on vacation. So maybe I'll be a guest streamer. How does that sound? And if anyone in the Toronto area needs dog sitting services, I do it for free because I love dogs so much. When we were in Montreal, we got to meet Gabriel Gautier-Shalom's cats, who I also really enjoyed. I would love to meet the real Churro, the namesake. Nothing wrong with a dog or a cat named after food. My dog growing up was named after chocolate, being named Hershey. We miss you, Hershey. May you rest in peace. Josh has duplicate ends with an M. Oh, over Christmas. That's a nice time. I'm hoping if the border opens that I'll be able to go to the Albany tournament that goes just after Christmas through New Year's. A very makeable drive. it's also an easier, but right now Canadians can fly to the States even if we're unvaccinated. I'm not, I am vaccinated, and I hope you all are as well. But they won't let Canadians drive in for leisure purposes, even if they're vaccinated. So that to me seems quite inconsistent, but it is the rule, and it did prevent me and basically every other Canadian from playing in the Lake George event. I hope those that go have a great time. I know Josh and Noah and Sid will all be rooming together. Josh having dual citizenship. Jackson had to drop out, being Canadian. Josh scores very nicely, just dropping two of his clunky consonants here with hmm. There is some underlap potential there. Can take an MP or S, I believe. I hope I haven't forgotten any. Noah is an E away from detector. Oops. Um, so he's gonna have to try and find a play here. He's down 43, which is pretty considerable at this point in the game. Both blanks are gone. There are two S's unseen to both players, but not a lot of places to hook. The TE of uprights and equates gives a nice lane for bingoing. I could definitely see Josh looking to block there if he doesn't have a big score beneath but I think he does with temp, like a temporary worker, making the words ohm, an electrical unit, and ump, an umpire in baseball. It could have been a P setup, and it, like I said, it would work for a pretty big score for him next turn. Although he also has to balance, as I was saying, blocking that big lane, the fourth lane next to TE, where Noah could get a bingo, which will be his best chance of getting back into this game. And if you're Noah, if you can't hit that lane, you want to be creating a new lane, and the only spot to create a new bingo lane is going to be in the upper right quadrant. Anything he does to create a lane there, like if he were to play con to set up icon as a very quick example that I haven't thought through. Okay, he's gonna take his bingo lane to score, I believe that's 26. It's gonna keep him down 17 points and a turn. So with TR, if he draws well and the SO come down first, will he get some vowels to go with it? He did get an I, but that is going to leave him in a tough spot because not that he necessarily needs a bingo, being down 17, you perhaps could score to get back into this, but my first thought would not have been to take out that lane. And yeah, temp will come down as we expected. So now Josh is feeling very happy because Noah did his job for him by taking out that big scoring lane, and then Josh gets to hit at the lane without having to feel like he should be blocking. So that's putting him up big now, 56 points by my math. And now any lane that Noah tries to open, Josh can just decide to block there, assuming he draws a vowel, and he did draw an E, which will help him. You could bingo down to the G or through the G, or even through the G and R of Rubagos down to Ensnarl. You could bingo through the U of upright. I guess through the ORE of or, but that's pretty unlikely. If you're Noah, you really have to be creating lanes here, but the problem with that is that by creating lanes, you're probably not scoring a lot, and then Josh might even be able to outrun you, even if you do eventually hit a bingo. That's why I didn't like his decision to close that lane with coded. And let's get a definition of coded for the chat. Oops, define. I should know the codes by now. Pass by, to outstrip. And it's related to dogs, so that's perfect for those of us who love dogs. And Uh, Hopefully Wibbles hasn't started to make you hate dogs because every time you get a word challenge off the board it barks at you. But I love dogs so much that even when I lose a challenge, I'm in a good mood. So, in a casual game, I'll say. If it was a real tournament, it would be very different. I would not be happy. Um, Noah's taken a lot of time here. He is up on the clock, having about twice as much time left as Josh, but even that is not going to save him. The bark does make me jump too, but I've slowly gotten used to it, and I've tried to start phoning less. I've been losing so many games to HastyBot, not because it's that much better than me, and it is better than me because of how consistent it is, but because I play too quickly. When you're playing against a computer, sometimes it's easy to forget. Because it's always your turn, it feels like you're using, like, you feel like you've thought it through more than you had, when in a real game, not only would you be thinking on your clock, but you'd be thinking on your opponent's clock. So just by slowing down a lot in the past week or so, I think I've had much better results. Oh, I phony with two-letter words all the time. IR is one of the ones that seems to come up. OT. EW used to be a common phony before OO was added to the dictionary. Um, LE, I think, would be the other famous two-letter phony in NWL, at least, that shows up. I have no idea if any of those are good in Collins because I don't play Collins and I try not to watch it so I don't get word knowledge confusion. Um, OT is very difficult. Could mean overtime, could mean occupational therapy, but it is not a two-letter word valid in this dictionary. Yeah, I work with OTs, Binac. Would like to hear what you do in the field. Okay. I like the idea here by Noah. I'm gonna play dolls, just trying to create anything. Um, Josh is probably gonna have a hard time blocking here without giving something back. If he had two vowels, he could probably play a six-letter word to the D. Even if he takes out the D, Noah might be able to play through the O or through the U. Um, Not since drawing the third I, that's not going to help anything. But when you're behind, you have to create lanes and hope for the best. Noah knows that anything he played there was still going to leave him in a really difficult situation. But it's less than a bingo lead, so we cannot call this one over. There's 11 unseen tiles to Josh, meaning that 4 are in the bag. I'm going to copy. That is the pool that is unseen to Josh. So most of those tiles are on Noah's rack. You can see the G, everything between the G and the T is on his rack. So right now in the bag, it's AAEU. That'll help Josh, who's looking to draw vowels. That'll not help Noah, who has 3 eyes. Josh will probably give Noah one more chance to draw into the bag. But Josh is going to use probably most of his remaining clock, I would assume, on this turn. Like I said, from a first glance, there's no easy way to block what Noah just created, which is why I liked the play of dolls. It's making something happen. It's not going to lead to enough for Noah here, but it is making Josh think, which in match play can actually serve to your advantage. You're playing the same person multiple games. They'll be tied 2-all after this, playing a best of 11, so someone has to get to 6 wins, so they'll be playing at least 4 more games. Uh, and upwards of quite a few more than that. 7 more games, I believe, would be the most. Pond looks like a nice block. Above the P, you can only put a U or an O. There's 1 U in the bag. He won't be concerned about UD because that is not really a common letter pattern. Um, Noah knows there's one in the bag. He's gonna check his tracking here to figure out what it could be. And looking at Josh's rack and the available pool, the tile is an E, so that perhaps on a different board at least could be helpful. I don't see what fishing off an I and drawing an E would be able to accomplish here, but it doesn't mean nothing exists. The problem is, even if something does exist, Josh would probably be able to sniff it out and just block it very easily. It was harder for him to block when he didn't have vowels, but since drawing 3 vowels after pond, which we knew he would, he now has quite a lot of flexibility in his rack to block anything that comes up. Yeah, I was also thinking about out being an important thing to hang on to there, Joel. So lids is probably slightly better. We know with what the pool is here, it probably wasn't going to work just because Noah was buried in eyes, but he didn't know that going into the turn, so lids probably is the better play. I know I had more time to think about it, so when he reviews this game, it might seem like a small mistake, but it'll probably be one that nags at him because it was a very makeable idea. At this point, he's pretty much drawing dead, to use a poker term that the poker players in the chat would be familiar with, in that no matter what he draws, he's probably not hitting anything. He might throw an eye out in space to form something like in. Could he hit anything? Tigris plus blank. I guess he could hit RTGs. So that's an uncommon word. He's not going to be able to create 2 spots to play in it. I think this all goes back to that one turn of coded, where he took out a lane he was going to need to come back. It didn't feel like he was behind by that much, and perhaps if he had drawn better after that, he would have been in a position where even being down 17 or so in a turn, he could have come back. But by drawing poorly after that, he had no chance. So I think trying to keep the lane available, and then maybe he could have set up 2 spots for RTGs, maybe he would have had enough to potentially come back. But either way, he was in a very difficult position, and it's very easy to comment in hindsight when you're in the middle of a tournament and in the moment. Sometimes that 26 points and bringing you close to within a score is very tempting. I'm going to define the word RTGs. I think it's the only word he could maybe fish for. He's not going to hit it because the E is in the bag. Oh, it's a Canadian word, which is nice to see. A parka. And he is giving up on this game by playing a very fun word that repeats itself twice, like tom-tom, gree-gree in this case. There aren't a lot of those words, but he has figured out that even if he were to fish for RTGs, and I'm sure he considered that, Josh was going to have no problem blocking it. So he's just going to take spread. Just in the case here, that spread comes up to play. So at this point, it's pretty much academic. Josh will be careful here, just in case Noah's sitting on a big score he hasn't considered. Oh, is it Mott Mott, not Tom Tom, or are they both good? Oh, see, that's probably one of those ones where it's come up before on Ziziba or whatever, and I guessed Tom Tom, and it's actually Mott Mott. So it shows you how easy it is to make mistakes, even when you've spent time trying to learn these harder words. I think it's hard, as I've been saying, when you're trying to do a few things at once, but I definitely thought the word was tom-tom. I wonder if it's pronounced mot-mot. In French, that would be mo-mo, like mo meaning word. Josh hates when I speak French because I do so quite poorly. Even Noah, being from Portland, seems to have a pretty good grasp of French. He's definitely not fluent, but he knows a bit. I also know a bit. Um, Noah speaks a bit of Mandarin, having spent some time in China in his teenage years. Dad City, if you want to know if a word's good, you can put the exclamation mark and define, and then type tom-toms, and it still won't come up. Are you thinking tom-toms like a hat? I feel like that's what I was thinking. Um, Josh will play do. In the top right there. Doesn't look like his best play, but according to Quacklett's second best play, he could have played Faena, F-A-E-N-A, a word he does know, parallel to Kaizen's. Pom-pom, yeah, that would be the hat. Thank you, Horse. Tom-toms like drums, okay. Yeah, I know a tom is a hat. A pom-pom is like the cotton ball that I guess I know it being on hats, but you could put it on a dress or a bonnet, as the definition there suggests. Noah's going to go out with traces, and we're going to put this one in the books. A tam is like a Scottish hat. I believe a tom is also a hat, or is it just a cat? Oh, the tom is like the male version of animals. The tam is the Scottish cat. I also thought, like strategy, that tom is the alternate, but there are so many words that it's so easy to get confused. And we are tied in the set. 2 games all. I'm going to save this game, number 4. And I'm going to run to the bathroom as they do their post-mortem and clear the tiles off the board. I'll be right back. Maybe TomTom will be added in a later update. It used to be the dictionary was updated every maybe 5 to 10 years, but lately they've been updating it every 2 or so. The most recent update was just to remove some slurs. I haven't mentioned that yet. It seems to be a controversial topic, but it hasn't really come up. Perhaps it will in one of the later games. I see they've signed their slip. This game is now official. Noah, coming into the tournament as the 1 seed, fell 6 games to 2 to Jackson and is now tied 2 games all here in his second set. Josh also fell in the first set to Sid 6 games to 4 and is tied here 2 games all. We have a lot more Scrabble for you here today. I'll be calling 3 more games before passing over the torch to Kenji for the night games. At some point soon, we'll get to see games between Jackson and Sid playing in the kitchen while Josh and Noah play in the main room of Josh's apartment. I'm gonna put the sure, we're happy to watch Jackson and Sid play. Um, I'm rambling, that's what I do. And I'm typing out what I'm writing. You can hear me. But TomTom's a brand. Okay, so we figured that out. Um, we would love to watch Jackson and Sid if they're ready for a game. We know you have a lot of games to play today, so we don't want to delay the action too much. Okay, after this one, whatever you guys want, you're organizing. We could do a poll. They ordered lunch, they had dumplings. I hope I can say that without getting another emoji face from Josh. Um, but now that I know he doesn't want me to tell you things about his life, I'm inclined to tell you more. I'm just kidding, of course. Um, does anyone remember how to do a poll? I'm going to put that. I see how to end a poll. Okay, I figured it out. Oh, looks like Josh was ahead of me. So after this game, people, do you want to watch Tony Sim or switch to Jackson and Sid or remain with Noah and Josh? I know a lot of Typo's viewers love to watch Josh because he's our favorite. You should dox Josh. I've been thinking about it. All I said was about his apartment, but there's so much more we could share with the audience. Um, and so as strategy looks through old texts and photos for funny things he can share about Josh, I'll give you a bit of an update on this poll, which right now has 2 votes for switching to Jackson and Sid, and now 1 staying on this game. A couple people want to see Tony Sim. I like to see Quackle's Sims. It's still pretty close, 3 games to 2. Jackson hasn't been on stream much yet. I wonder if that's an edge for him. I don't think he cares too much. Um, it looks like Sid won his first 2 games against Jackson. Those are the only scores I'm seeing so far. So we're tied 2-2 here. I don't know what the score is in the other set, but at least through the first 2 games, it's 2-0. Yes, it doesn't really like being on stream, but he was just over here the other day and he was telling me he hasn't really been on stream. He's only been on stream, he said, once or twice, so he felt more inexperienced in that result. Um, but he looked very calm in the games against Josh. It helped that he was doing well, but I think he'll handle it just fine. Sid is so motivated to do well in Scrabble. He's been driving 10, 12 hours in a single day just to go play 1-day tournaments in a dictionary he doesn't even prefer, just to play more Scrabble. And if it means being on stream, even if it's not what he necessarily would have chosen, he's totally okay with that. And you gotta love Sid's motivation. And I also really like how he plays his own style. I know a lot of the early games were talking about how defensive he is, and when basically every top player is playing offensively, and then you have one playing defensively, it's pretty exciting. Yeah, they all spent 300 US to play in this tournament, and they decided that the winner would take all. So it says it's a $1,200 prize, but you really should be subtracting the 300 you paid. Um, so, oh, was he freaking out? Yeah, like it's a lot of pressure. I didn't see the very original streams. Last night I was out. I only got back for the 6th game. Okay, so never mind. It's a $1,200 pool, but it's 740, 460, and then you have to subtract the 300 that they paid to enter. Part of the problems when you only have four people paying, as what WTF tries to correct Josh's math here, is that you're only taking money from three other people if you win, and the second person still has to be paid off. Um, it could have been 780, 420. I think whatever they agreed on is fine. It's nice that two of the four people will make a small profit here. The first player will get even more. Okay, we'll wait 9 minutes and I'll continue to ramble, not about Josh. You guys already know everything about him, how he enjoys cycling, speaking French, and making fun of people who make poor plays. But not on stream, because he's very nice on stream. Nothing like he is in person, where he's much more of a... No, that is not Josh's bed in the background. That is just a blanket. We don't talk about Josh's apartment because it's his private space. We also don't talk about his former job when he was in softcore porn. I mentioned it once in one of the chats. Um, he doesn't want to go back to softcore porn. Nothing wrong with sex work, but when you're 6'7", it's very expensive to get waxed. That's a lot of skin. Um, okay, well, Jew Horse has taken me seriously here. It's not exactly true, but you never know. And if you don't want him to have to resort to work that doesn't appeal to him, why not donate to his stream and help the stream go on even longer? Um, thank you for a couple of these weird emojis. I'm always glad to inspire a bit of laughter. I like the sad Oscar the Grouch looking face. Yeah, you should take note on the softcore stuff. And maybe when Kenji doxes Josh, you can find the link. And not to worry, Josh, I've given them your address, so if they want to come talk to you, they know where to find you. Yeah, exactly. Churro's throwing around the money. 200 bits, thank you very much. And the bits show up in purple, which, as we know, is her favorite color. Cynical Ad wants to withdraw his subs because he wants Josh going, or her subs, I shouldn't assume genders, because they want Josh to go back to porn, which is fair. Josh, OnlyFans have been a thing for quite some time. But it's a softcore OnlyFans channel, so it doesn't make that much money, so we really need those bits. Oh, and yeah, they will have to leave money for the participation fee to be paid towards the NASPA fees and stuff. Hello, blue skies for me. I hope you're getting blue skies today. It's been very rainy here in Toronto. They were calling for 10 to 15 millimeters of rain, so it seemed like a nice day to sit inside and commentate on Scrabble. I don't know how many inches that would be in those freedom units, but fair to say it was raining pretty heavily for most of the early afternoon. Yeah, Elderwood, they do need a second lunch. It's a lot of brain power to be thinking so intensely. Even though they haven't really been getting any physical exercise, they've been using a lot of brain power, and I find I get very hungry during tournaments. Um, yeah, Strategy's pointed out how only if the tournament gets rated, it better ended up being rated because they're using 20-minute clocks, not 25-minute clocks. There was some talk that it might not end up being rated. That would be very disappointing to all players who I just think a rated tournament is more fun because there's more on the line. And I know someone like Sid who's having a great tournament and really wants to hit that 2,000 mark would love for this to be rated after his great start. I mean, there's a lot that can still happen, but they went 20, yeah, because they want to play so many games. Upwards of 44. I think Sid cares the most about ratings, mainly because he hasn't hit that 2,000 mark yet that all top players want to hit. whether Josh, Jackson, and Noah care about ratings, I'm sure they care about their results. They want the money. I think they want the money more than the ratings. I think Sid wants the ratings more than the money. Um, yeah, they are allowed to play 20-minute tournaments if they had gone through the proper channels. It sounds like they haven't. Hopefully the organization will be willing to overlook that, but they can be a bit of sticklers to the rules sometimes. The rules are important, and I do understand. I'm a bit surprised they wouldn't have gone through the official channels if such channels are available, but none of that had anything to do with me, so I can't really comment. I'll leave that to people like Josh. More money to keep Josh from getting a very painful waxing. We all saw the 40-year-old virgin and saw Steve Carell screaming about Kelly Clarkson. I've heard Josh play her on the piano, but uh, I don't think he wants to be screaming her name in pain. Bits from Blue Sky, 100 of them from the DC area. Not blue skies there, but we have purple bits, which sounds like something you might find in a box of Lucky Charms, which was my favorite cereal growing up. And Josh, oh, are those still the apples that you picked? And look at this, 5 tier 1 subs coming in from Juhorse. Thank you. Yeah, it has caused players to go over time. Especially we've watched a more methodical player like Josh, who does really like to use every last inch of his clock. This hype train is up to level 2. We have 4.5 minutes to get it into level 3. I promised Josh that out of all the streamers, my feed would get the most money donated, so help prove me right for once. Somebody wants to continue this hype train, but if not, that's okay too. I see a few of the chess players were recipients of those gifted subs. It's always nice to see chess players in the stream. If you've come here from another game, such as chess, or maybe one of the video games that gets streamed about, I'd love to hear about it. Please tell us how you found this channel, if you're new to Scrabble. I've been trying to make my commentary in a way that will help players who are newer to the game as well as more experienced players. But if we're saying something that you don't understand, just put a message in the chat. I'll try and answer it, and if not me, one of the other regular players here. And Juhorse is back to that sad Oscar the Grouch phase. Oh, thank you, Churro. Look at that with a tier 1 sub. Oh, I tried to cheer and it looks like I did it wrong. Because I put an exclamation mark. Will this get us over into tier 3? Oh, it will. How do you like that? Thank you to Jeep Placard. He's by far the most handsome and talented of the streamers, and without a doubt the most modest. Thank you, Josh. You've been missing a great time in the chat. I'm excited. I hope you watched the videos later. The first one was a bit rough because I didn't mute my own feed like a fool, but since then I hope I've been a lot more consistent with my commentary. The games have been quite well played. I haven't had too much to pick at. It's been a very tight series here. We're happy to see it 2-all. It means we're more likely to get more games. And Josh is now leaving us. Well, okay. Thank you, Will. I haven't seen Will here lately, but he was in the streams earlier, and I'm sure he'd like to know that you've led him to the great Josh. He probably already knows. Will commentated the opening night of this tournament, and he will be commentating the final day. So we will get more Will content. Tune in Monday, all day pretty much, to see Will going over the final round, which I think might even be a best of 13, not best of 11. So there will be a lot of Scrabble to be played Monday. Here in Canada, it is Thanksgiving. I believe it's a holiday there in the States too, but I could be wrong. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone, even if you don't celebrate it at all or in October. What are you thankful for? Why don't you let us know? I am thankful to be hosting this event, to be invited to commentate in an event with such high-level players, all four who are rated higher than I am. Uh, I'm thankful that I pissed off Josh by mentioning stuff about his apartment. I'm thankful that Strategy's going to be doxing him tonight. So it looks like they are ready to start uh, the fifth game, I should say. I will get things ready here in Quackle. Our hype train might be dying here at level 3. Josh is gonna end up back in softcore porn. Some of you, I think, wanted to see that. Most of you did not. Nothing against sex workers, let's make that very clear. It's a job like no other. Sistrogs in November. Does that mean you're in the States, I would assume? I celebrate Thanksgiving in November as well by watching football. Get to see the Lions lose, and then the Cowboys put us to sleep, and then lately they've been doing a night game as well, which is normally a lot more fun. Noah will be going first in game 5, so I'll enter a pass for Josh just for scorekeeping purposes. And Michigan, so you're a Lions fan. I've been a Lions fan for many years, who's switched to the Bills lately, being the local team here in Toronto. The Lions are atrocious, but it is fun watching them lose. I liked watching Barry Sanders as a kid. Noah's probably going to play short here with something like Dap, because leaving Star as a leave is just so strong, and it's going to put him in a great position going into his second turn. Josh has a pretty balanced rack, but he does have duplicate N's and E's, and that's going to stop him from bingoing here. So he's going to have to think about how he can drop a couple of those tiles while still keeping a nice bingo lead going forward, as we see that Noah has drawn into the first blank of the game on the right side of the screen. Yeah, Strategy, I missed that big doink off the upright, but that was a hilarious way to lose, and the Lions are incredible at doing that. The refs had missed a delay of game call the play before, and then, which, as every Lions fan knows, they're going to lose games because the refs don't like them. And then the refs told the head coach that delay of game is a subjective call, which seems very strange because if you've gone over time, there's nothing subjective about it. It's very obvious, but that's okay. They're in a rebuilding year, as always. No one thought they were going to win, and it was nice to see Justin Tucker set a new NFL record with, I believe it was a 66-yard field goal. Josh is going to go for a high-scoring play here, underlapping with the word cane. Yeah, Strategy. That was just quite the sequence. So Noah is once again staring down at a blank. I feel like he's had a lot of blanks this set, and yet Josh has done well to keep this set tied at 2-all. He will have bingos here. I'll put some alphagrams in the chat to see if people can unscramble them, I should say. An alphagram would just be a word that is written in alphabetical order, like each letter, instead of spelled out properly. Can people unscramble those words? I know Strategy can. Those are the only two that are going to play here. Strayer would be acceptable. People might not be sure of that. Those ER endings are tough, but the dictionary does take it. One who strays would have to be the definition. The other one's a very common word, but the letter pattern is not so common, so it might be harder to find. But you should know what it means. Yeah, nicely done, Churro. Martyrs. So Noah, being the great anagrammer that he is, I'm very confident he will find this. Martyrs would anagram beneath Dap and Cain, forming Dam, Anna, and Per. He could also look to Bingo, forming Daps. Uh, but I would think, yeah. So just looking at Quackle here, because I haven't done the math myself, Martyrs will score the most with the Y on the triple letter score, going down to forming Daps. Um, Strayer and Martyrs both underlap directly beneath Dap and Cain, so that's also an option and leaves fewer tiles floating in space. That's okay, you don't have to play Scrabble to be able to unscramble a word like that. I find a lot of people, if you watch their games and they're just a casual player, they'll never really bingo. But if you tell them that there is a bingo there and tell them to keep looking, they can often find it. Um, so one of the first things you want to do on any turn is look for the longest word you can find on your rack and through tiles on the board. Um, you just got lucky, or by seeing the 7 letters, you're able to put them together by finding a suffix of ER. Yeah, it is a lot easier. I was looking at someone's results on Words with Friends, and they were bingoing like 1 in 50 games maybe, and by standing over their shoulder and just giving them some basic coaching, they were able to find 2 bingos in 1 game. So it is possible when you just start looking for those prefixes, suffixes, and hanging onto the tiles you want to keep. And bingo tiles, I remember a bingo gets a 50-point bonus, would sort of be the letters in a word like clarinets or triangles. Uh, like in Wheel of Fortune, they have R, S, T, L, and E, and then add AI. Those are nice bingo tiles. So when you start hanging on to those 1-point tiles, you can often play a 7-letter word, which is often needed if you want to win in competitive Scrabble. Triangles has a G. It's not exactly a good bingo tile. Um, Clarinets would be a better example, yes. Josh's turn here. He has FVN, so he has 3 clunky tiles here. If he can get rid of 2 of them with a word like vermin, he might consider it. Um, he hasn't flipped the board, but that's okay. We're pretending we're playing a real game, and it's our opponent's turn, and we're looking upside down. Um, but it's not a real game, so I'm able to look at Noah's rack and see he's drawn into danders, like pet fur. Yeah, I was more thinking clarinets. I don't know why I decided to add triangle as an example. Vi overlaps a lot. It does leave 4 consonants, but it scores more than vermin. It scores 9 more to be exact, so nothing wrong with that play. But it gives an even better spot for danders to come down, a safer spot at least. And that'll put up Noah big. 113 points if my math is right. I can't see what Josh's 7th tile is. TMNFLA something. Looks like a J maybe, or an I? It's hard to analyze what he would possibly do when we can't see every one of his tiles, but let's look at where his tiles might fit on the board, the ones we can see. The F or M could fit above the A in danders and try and make a parallel play. The M could go below that A. You could play something like raft from the R in danders down to the triple score, but he's going to want to do better than that. He doesn't have a hook to Vi. Flam makes a lot more sense than the stuff I was saying. I'm just going to enter the 7,000 I. And now we go over to Noah. He has a dog on his rack, which means he must have been listening to our conversation. He could play Mam, Moo, On, and Odd. He's starting to fidget quite a lot at the board. Is that a tell of some sort, or just regular nerves coming out? Oh, it's an L. Okay, I'll go back and do that properly, so that when they look at this game later, they have all entered properly for proper analysis. Thank you, Kenji. He could play something like Groom, leaving Todd. He could play Goo, getting rid of that ugly G that we don't like. It's not just Josh who doesn't like the G. I think most people don't like the G, because unless you have ing, it's not a good tile at all. And even with ing, it's often not as good as people think. I do think exchanging here would be a bad idea. Is that what you're suggesting? He's ahead by 85. He can score about 20, low 20s. I don't see any reason to exchange here. So he is going to go with Goo, which is definitely one of the 2 or 3 plays I would have been considering. Josh has a much uglier rack. That G we don't like, that V we don't like, and duplicate L's, we don't like duplicates. Does he have anything he can play here? You think I would have played Groom? The Groom's not my style. It gives a lot back with the O, and also that you could hook it. I would have much rather with his lead play defensive. It does take out the R floater, but I don't like potentially giving back and opening up a new lane to end an S. Oh, Elderword style, I see. Yeah, I wasn't looking at Groom at all. I think Goo is probably what I would have ended up with. This is a much harder decision because there's really not much. It looks like you might have to form Game beneath Gam, but the problem is you can't reach that double word score by doing so because you don't have an underlap to the L, being an AI or O. So do you play Gelt and leaving LNV? Is there anything better? Gelt looks so unappealing. It's a very frustrating game, Scrabble, in which you make plays that your brain is telling you this is terrible, I don't want to play this. He's going to exchange. Okay. The exchange here seems more reasonable than it would have on the previous turn. Gelt leaving LNV is probably, I think I might have lent that way, but the exchange has been made. GVLL, we don't want those tiles, so throw them back. Noah's rack is mouth do. Out home. He's gonna have to think about how he can protect his big lead here. Scoring is always a good option. Any of the plays he's looking at here are going to be scoring in the mid-20s. I think Foe is the highest, F-O-H. But yeah, you don't need to be giving that H to start a triple lane, so instead a play like Hood, which has no front hooks that I can think of, looks a lot better. It has a weird hook, a front hook to Gam, being the O, O-Gam. You can spell that with an H in the middle, O-G-H-A-M. Let's get a definition for myself and chat. It's an old alphabet from Irish. Josh is going to play Nifty, leaving, I think, Ute, yeah. Looks reasonable. We didn't really have a lot of time to look it over. He played it so quickly. The Y is pretty hard to start bingos with. Definitely not impossible, but the H would have, I think, been a better tile to start bingos with. So Noah will live with that. Can he take out the right side of the board there? The R floater plays ending in an S, hooking strayer. That is where Josh is going to want to really open things up, getting the top opened. He could also hook a bingo onto dap. So Noah's not going to be able to block both lanes where an S could end a word, but starting to think defensively wouldn't be the worst idea. One of the things I love about the NWL dictionary is how defensive strategy really comes into play. There is a very interesting word of samfu. Oh, if he saw tenuity. We didn't have time to see it unless you were looking at Josh's rack on Noah's turn. The players, as I've been saying, are thinking on each other's clock. Let's define this fun word. This is a Chinese outfit. Is he going to want to give up that S hook to the triple lane? Is there anything he can play through the R to reach it? Yeah, he is going to play Samfu. Okay. Leave's a great leave. It scores, keeping him up well over bingo, approaching 2 bingos. Yeah, he's up 133, which would be 2 small bingos. So it puts him in a very comfortable position, and looking at Josh's rack, he does not have the response he wants to a play like Samfu. He might not know for sure that that word takes an S. Scrabble Kitty is telling us it does. And he has that UWG combination that nobody wants to see. What do you play here? He could play U, E-W-E, being the animal, a sheep, female, forming ode, ew, being the interjection, something being gross, and re. But that's going to get rid of both of his E's, which he's going to want to try and form bingos. Common word for Noah to the E in strayers. Okay, oh, I see it. I see at least one of them. We'll see if the chat can solve them. The one I see uses a consonant in the middle of the dictionary. Josh is going to play wheat, trying to get rid of more tiles here, hoping maybe to draw into an N to help that IG, or to a blank, ideally. It takes away some of the power of the Samfu hook. Noah is a great anagrammer, and we'll have no problem finding one of these bingos that Kenji has seen, and right away he's reaching for the slip. Okay, that isn't the one I had seen, but that is a very nice one. Nice French word for our Montreal tournament. The blank is a B for baguette, which I think people know to be a type of bread product. Josh's leave of UIG is looking better, having drawn some scoring tiles at least. Something like Hodge could come down. Jibba, I'm seeing through the B in baguette. Does Jibba take an H? I think so. Yeah, it does take an H. Oh, and Juba with the U. I think Jibba's a lot easier to see because it takes that if without the H takes the D front hook and the H back hook, whereas juba is only good with the H. So that makes it a much harder find. Tutelage was the other one, yeah, the L. That was the consonant in the middle of the diction or the alphabet that I had seen. Yes, churro, that is a less common spelling of baguette, but it is acceptable. Tough way to learn that lesson, but hopefully, oh, that's an interesting play. He's not scoring very much with jug here. Um, the H-A-B-I leave. Was there something specific that perhaps he thinks he is close to by making a play like that? That is true. It is hard to see plays through, but even Hodge, where he played jug, it's a bit worse of a leave, I guess, because you're leaving that UG, but it scores way more. I guess the H gives back points there. I like to think if he saw Jibba or Jabba, he would have played them. Churro, he might have kept Hodge, HA to play Hodge there, but I wouldn't think so. It doesn't score enough as a setup. 4, 5, 13, 39 by my math. You're not really scoring enough to make that setup worth it to have passed it up on the previous turn. Oh, and Noah's going to find puerile, a common adjective meaning childlike, and this game is well out of reach for Josh now. Noah has more than double Josh's score. Well, common as in people outside of the Scrabble world would have heard of it. Perhaps you haven't, but it is a word that comes up. I think most people know what puerile means. It's not common as in you necessarily hear it in day-to-day speech a lot, but I think it's one that most people would recognize. Maybe he hates the G that much, but to me that was one of his first big misses of the day. It wasn't going to matter with regards to winning this game. His odds of winning were quite minuscule. He's going to decide here to just open up a second triple lane. Why not? Because both triple lanes are up top, if Noah can go from the P to the triple or from the triple to the V, then it'll take out both lanes at once. And Noah very quickly takes the obvious play of OXO, a very common word to Scrabble that we know as a hook to ox, and we know it doesn't take an S. And it looks like at this point that they're just playing through the set. They know this one is over. They know spread doesn't matter as much in this tournament as it might in others, although it still could come into play. That said, they can slow down on any turn. It could just be that Oxa was a very obvious play. He really didn't have much to think about there. Josh's rack here looks promising, but I'm not seeing a bingo. His arm is blocking his tiles at the moment, but now you can see he has broken plus an I. And he'll play Bevor. Wackle says that's the highest scoring play, and it hangs on to his K, which could score a lot, but it's not going to do much for him here. Armor for the face, that is what Bevor is. Is that common? Just because I think one word is common, like puerile, it could just be a word that I'm more exposed to. We all have our gaps. There are many common words that certain people won't know, and many uncommon words that people will know. Well, that's fair. You guys can be the arbiter of commonality. I think you were instrumental in developing the Common Language Dictionary, perhaps? The one being used on Woogles that I really enjoy playing on. WTF, speaking with authority, we love that. Um, Noah's looking at his rack. He has the word Wilco, which is also a band. It doesn't take the S hook, which is important to know. Um, yeah, like joining the chat conversation here, some words seem very commonplace. Like Josh, for example, might be more familiar with words taken from the French. Um, as the copy pastas arrive, I find Elderword really knows some obscure words and then really doesn't seem to know some common words. So in our limited time playing together, that's what I've picked up as a bit of a read. Um, Players who have studied more by probability are more familiar with the bingos and stuff that show up with common letters like those in clarinets. I won't say triangles again before Kenji catches me in my faux pas. Josh is looking at three ends. Oh, flowers are tough, plants, fruits, animals. We know the common ones, but there are so many and they all show up in the dictionary. Yeah, fish. Fish are really tough. A lot of top players will study words ending in fish, words ending in OID, words ending in ER, words ending in other common endings, because it's not enough uh, just to have an idea. You really want to go through those difficult endings and uh, beginnings as well, prefixes, suffixes. Again, I'll link the programs that a lot of the top players use to study. Um, Aerolith is one, created by Cesar. And then there is also Zivzava, created by, I'm not sure, somebody will fill us in. Um, the blank tiles are designated when they're played 95 Horatio, so when they play it, they circle a letter on a score slip that announces what they're declaring it to be. In this case, I think the only letters they could be are B and E to form baguette. However, in some cases, the blank can not be clear, and it could be two different options, but the players decide on what it is when it's played, and it can't be changed from that point on. That was a good question. We're always happy to answer people's questions. Welcome to the chat, and thanks for participating. Noah's not going to take a lot of time. He's going to play Oliek, and that's going to score nicely. Leave Ellie and get us closer to finishing this game that's been out of hand for quite some time. Even though the set has been even in that it's 2-all now, soon to be 3-2, we've had some games that have been over about halfway through. That does happen in Scrabble. Even if players are very evenly matched, one match, one player can win by 300, and the next match, that same player can lose by 300. Sometimes when you're down, you have to create more lanes that'll make it so that you fall even further behind. And that becomes a balancing act of how much you're playing for your win percentage versus your spread being the difference in points between your score and your opponent's score at the end of the game. And Josh is looking at ABIINNS. He has the S hook next to ink, So we'll probably see something like Bales, perhaps, leaving in. Um, I think he knows that Noah is going to go out next turn with let. Okay, tabs, does that score more? It scores the same, but it leaves one extra tile in his rack. So that might be a slight mistake, but at this point it's quite irrelevant. Not often you see such a juicy scoring spot like that double word score beside ink that'll stay unfilled by the end of the game, but it does happen. And Noah's really been racking up the points today. Another high 500 game, or this would be a mid 500 game. We saw him get close to 600 in one of the early games of this set. When he gets the tiles, he is dangerous, and even when he doesn't. So he can definitely go out, tell, light. Uh, he just has to look through the board and find the one that scores the most. I've been saying sometimes you want to conserve energy at these points, but this doesn't take a lot of brain power, just sort of glancing through the board and looking for the one play that's going to score the most. But basically, he'll figure out that plays through the E of Oliak are going to score the most. They're going to score 6. There are 3 anagrams that will fit there. I'll type them into the chat here. You can play any of those for 6. I'd say none of those are common words. Perhaps we can define them. Oh, so tele is short for a television, which I wouldn't think would be a word on its own. Teal is a sesame plant. And leet is a former English court for petty offenses, so a dated term there. If spread is the tiebreaker, Horatio asks, does it make sense to resign games as soon as they're out of reach? You don't really see resigning in tournaments. It's not proper etiquette and really allowed. So, no. In casual games, people will resign when it's out of hand. And you can cut into the margin of spread as the game goes on. Even if you don't have a chance to win, you might be able to cut your deficit, which would help your spread. So it doesn't happen. There is a resign gang, as we like to call people, who are for resigning, and maybe things will change in the future. Just because you're not allowed to resign now doesn't mean rules won't change going forwards. I think when people like to play things out is, first of all, it's good practice. You always want to be practicing your end games and maximizing your score. Another reason you might want to play things out is because if people are concerned about their stats, so one thing on the site cross tables, which records all of the tournament results, is it shows how many points you average per game, and perhaps some people want that number to be reflective of their full potential. Yeah, Josh, somebody should redeem some piano coverage to play us out. My piano's in the other room, and I'm not nearly as talented as Josh, so we would much rather hear him play, but it is a tournament, so that's not going to happen. Even when he's looking at the screen, he's not able to read chat during the games. That would give him an unfair advantage. Noah here is really thinking this through, and I'm sure Josh just wants this game to be over. There's really not much to think about here, unless he thinks by going out in 2, he can up that 6 point, or by going out in 1, he has a value of 14. It scores 6, but he's picking up 8 points off Josh's rack, so that's 14. So I'll ask Championship Player what it would do here. And okay, so there are 2 plays better than those 6 point plays that Noah could make. I hadn't really thought it through, to be honest, because in my mind this game's over. But if he plays Yet and TE and EW next to Danders, that scores 20, and that'll end up giving him a 6 point. Yeah, good job, Noah. So I was sort of wondering why he was spending so much mental energy, but it was certainly worth it for the 6 points of spread. Josh will quickly lay down Zin, which I believe is short for Zinfandel, type of wine. And then Noah just has to find the best spot for his L, which would be in front of ink. Oh, and he doesn't see it. So after all that work um, to get 6 possible points in equity, he takes 3 points here instead of 8 points for Link. And so that's a 5 point mistake, but a very minor one because the game is over. But you never know when these are going to come into play. That's why people vote, even when they think their vote doesn't count, because you never know when it's that election where your vote will count, or that tournament where your spread will count. This goes a bit back to what Josh or Kenji was saying about how some players care more about their rating than the payoff, the financial payoff. So if you care more just about your rating going up, spread doesn't matter at all. So perhaps Sid would be saving time, although I know in talking to Sid, he's been working on his endgames quite a lot, so I think he's really going to try and think them through. He's very methodical, and that's been a big focus, an area of focus for him lately. We played 2 games here live, I mentioned earlier. Both went to the endgame, and I felt like he played both endgames stronger than me, so. Yes, McDougall, they do. I resign in chess all the time, even though I only resign in Scrabble when I'm playing against the computer. Um, I think people resign earlier than they should. It's good practice to be playing from behind. But I also think there are some positions where you just sort of have to resign unless you want to play out such tedium. Yeah, resigning, I don't have a problem with it. But I definitely resign a lot more in chess. In chess, once you're down too much, it's sort of over. But at the same time, I find I play against some players who they'll lose a minor piece, maybe they'll be down a bishop and a pawn or something, and they'll already be resigning, and that just seems pretty pathetic. Um, yeah, Binac, I do sort of agree with you. I've never had spread come into play for me. Like, it's always been quite variable. I haven't played as many tournaments as most, especially not as any of these 4 players. But every once in a while it will come into play. This tournament has more money on the line than most, so perhaps they will care more than often, but at the same time, they're playing so many games, you sort of have to conserve that brain power whenever you can. Yeah, for money. I find my brain is already getting tired, and I've only commentated 5 games, and they're playing upwards of 40. Um, wow, I didn't know that. Nigel winning nationals 4 times just based on spread. Yeah, it goes to show you. Um, I guess the question is, was his spread ever within like 50 points, 100 points, where these little plays would have accumulated? I mean, a lot of things would change,